This recorded lecture will cover Weeks 5, Chapter 5 content. In this recorded lecture, we will discuss and define the different types of performance pay, including individual, group, and organizational performance pay. There are 3 levels of performance pay: individual performance, group performance, and organizational performance. We will talk about different types within those 3 levels and categories of performance pay. Individual performance pay represents a kind of pay that is directed at motivating individual task performance. So the first type that I'm going to introduce you to is one called the piece rate pay plan, and that is where a fixed sum is associated with the output or a unit of production that is completed. So let me give you 2 examples of individual piece rates. So here in the Niagara region, we're known for our tender fruit and our grape growing. In those agricultural industries, they do use a piece rate pay plan or pay program where individuals are paid by the number of baskets of fruit they pick or the number of baskets of grapes that they harvest from the vines. So that would be deemed a piece rate. A more contemporary example would be an individual contractor such as a graphic designer who gets paid on the basis of the items of graphic design that they produce for their customers. There are 2 different kinds of piece rates. There's something called the straight piece rate and the differentiated piece rate. So straight piece rate simply means that the employee would get paid the same amount no matter what the level of output or production rate was. So whether you produce 200 items or 100 items or 50 items or 25 items, their individual pay rate would always remain the same. Whereas the differentiated piece rate is graduated. In other words, maybe for the first 200 items, they would only be paid $5 per item. Whereas if they met and exceeded the production standard of 200 items, for every item that they produced over 200, they would be paid $10. So the first 200 items produced, they would be paid $5 an item. And then for every number of items produced over 200, they would be paid $10. So that means that there's a change in piece rates based on production. That is rooted and based in the concept of economies of scale. In other words, in production, at certain levels of production, the costs of productions are spread out to the point where it becomes cheaper and cheaper for that item to be produced. So as a result, organizations will want to incentivize employees to target those production levels and to exceed those production levels so that they can achieve those economy of scales. Another example of a contemporary differentiated piece rate would be how we pay doctors in Ontario. So under the OHIP framework, doctors are paid per service. So, and then of course, different services provide different pay rates. So what we have here in Ontario for OHIP is a differentiated piece rate. So every patient that they see, they get paid, but then also the type of service that they provide warrants a different pay rate. So let's take a look at these 2 different positions. So these are 2 commonly found jobs here at Niagara College. One is an administrative assistant and the other is a custodian. So if you take a moment and think about this, do you think that with these jobs, you could incorporate a piece rate? So you may think at first that this is not possible, that their jobs are varied and they have quite a variety of different things that they're accountable for that makes them more appropriate for a base pay versus a performance pay system. But in fact, every job's compensation can be redefined to incorporate some kind of individual performance pay aspect to them. So for example, it might be identified that for administrative assistant here in Niagara College, that making student walk-in is may be a priority. In other words, it may be deemed by the department that the administrative assistant should first put most of their energy and their priority to answering student inquiries as they come in via email or as they come in via walk-ins into the departmental offices. So we could incorporate a piece rate or an individual performance metric where the administrative assistant is paid based on the number of student inquiries and the response time. Individual performance can also be designed and incorporated into the custodial positions. So custodial positions are required to clean so many classrooms in a certain amount of time, and so we could incorporate a metric that if they complete so many classes within a certain time period, they get a special incentive bonus. With every type of pay, there's always advantages and disadvantages. What I would say about piece rate and individual performance pay in general is that it is one of the best ways that we have in our toolkit to be able to motivate task performance behaviors. So individual performance pay is the best way that we can motivate task behavior. It also has the potential to reduce the need for external controls of employee behaviors. So if employees are actually paid on the basis of output, one would hope that they would be incentivized towards that behavior because their pay is actually directly tied to that behavior. So it is a clear line of sight for employees where they can see how it is that they can generate income for themselves and how they can generate more income for themselves by increasing their motivation to produce more product or service. The disadvantage, of course, is that piece rates are not appropriate for every job type. And there is time involved in terms of calculating compensation. So administratively, it is more work than establishing base pay, which is using time. And it can have the disadvantage of individuals being focused more on producing more or servicing more clients over shorter periods of time, and in the process they may sacrifice some of the quality that pre-exists that type of pay. Furthermore, whenever you introduce any kind of individual performance pay system, there's always the potential to create conflict between or a competitive atmosphere amongst your employees. Commission is another type of individual performance pay, and that type of pay is geared on the sales volume or the sales quantity that somebody engages in. So a classic example of a commission-based system would be a realtor or an insured salesperson. So a realtor will be paid based on the dollar value or percentage of the dollar value of the sale of a house. Straight commission, what differentiates commission versus straight commission is that straight commission simply means that your pay mix is primarily based on sales volumes or sales transactions, and that there is no base pay component to your pay. So you're simply paid on commission, no base pay exists in your pay mix. A question for you to ponder. Of these two types of organizations, so Toromont, which sells heavy equipment like loaders, and Walmart, so I won't describe Walmart because of course you're all familiar with that enterprise. So they each hire salespeople. So you have your sales clerk at Walmart, and then you have your Toromont salesperson who goes out to the client to visit them, to find out and assess what their needs are, and to make recommendations on what type of equipment Toromont CAT has to address their needs. So in these two circumstances, what do you think would be the most appropriate sales position to have a commission-based pay system? So that's something for you to think about as we move on to the next slide, where I describe the criteria that we use to determine whether a sales position is appropriate for commission or not. When an organization is trying to determine whether a commission is appropriate, they use the following three criteria. They look at the degree of independence that is required in the sales transaction. They'll look at the degree of persuasion and negotiation skills that are required to secure the sale. And they'll also look at the length of the sales cycle. The longer the length of the sales cycle, the more appropriate commission is. So let's think back to our two examples of salespeople. So one we have at Toromont, the other one we have at Walmart. So if you're working in a sales position at Walmart, most often you won't get any questions from customers around product within the store. Generally speaking, a customer that goes into Walmart most often already knows what they want, and they do not need any further assistance other than maybe being directed as to where to find that product within the store. So there's no level of persuasion skills that are needed to make sales at Walmart, and the sales cycle is quite short. So it's just based on the time the customer arrives and enters the store to the time they leave. There is no degree of independence upon the salesperson in terms of generating a client relationship to be able to make the sale. Whereas if we think about the Toromont salesperson, so a salesperson that works for Toromont has to do a lot of research, and they have to have a lot of product knowledge. They also have to have a lot of knowledge about their customers. So a Toromont salesperson needs to independently go out and cultivate relationships with different customers. So it could be in the heavy construction industry, it could be in mining, it could be in farming, it could be in manufacturing. They have to develop relationships within these different industry sectors. And then they have to be able to assess the client's needs and then have enough product knowledge to be able to build a business case for the customer as to why they would need that particular type of equipment. So there's a degree of independence and a high degree of persuasion required in that sales position. Furthermore, it could be that the salesperson has to work an entire year with a client, assessing needs, building the business case, and then finally making the sale. So the length of time can be quite extensive. So there's a lot of skill and a lot of time and attention. So this is somebody that is working in this role that is very much a professional salesperson. Probably has taken workshops and training to develop their sales skills, versus the sales associate at Walmart who needs very little skill related to sales at all. So Tormont would be, based on this criteria, a more appropriate position to qualify for a commission-based pay system. So there's some other consideration, and that is the degree of persuasion that is needed. So if we're looking at what's called a maintenance selling situation, that is when you're selling an established product to an existing customer, that would be deemed a sale that does not require as much energy and persuasive skills, because the customer's been won over already and they've already been purchasing the product. So this would warrant a low ratio of commission. Whereas if it's a conversion sale, so an established product but a new customer, this would warrant a moderate ratio of commission, because there's more persuasive skills necessary, but not to the but because it's a new customer, it's there's more persuasion needed than maintenance selling. Secondly, leverage selling is a new product but an existing customer. So that is also a moderate ratio of commission. And fourth, the most difficult selling scenario was when you have a new product and a brand new customer. So this is going to require a high level of persuasive skills. So then this situation warrants a higher ratio of commission. So as we discussed in the prior slide, Tormont, because of the level of independence that is necessary, the degree of persuasion that is required, and the length of the sales cycle, those types of sale positions would be more appropriate for commission than a Walmart sales position. According to the study, the Canadian study of commission sales systems, commissions is very rarely found in the following circumstances. So if the sales job is routine with existing customers, if the sales is done within the office, and if the position also includes many other duties in addition to sales, in those types of situations, you seldomly see a commission component to the pay mix. Although this is not specifically addressed in the textbook, I did want to give you a very simple but high level understanding of how it is that we set commission rates. So imagine that you are an organization that sells a particular product, and that you have divided the province of Ontario into a number of different sales regions. So what we would do is we would take a look at a particular sales region. For example, in this scenario, we're looking at the Greater Toronto Area. So we would look at prior sales for that region. So we'll look at this historical data and we'll come up with an average of sales for that region. Suppose this region has generated in the last 2 years $1 million in sales. Okay, so then what we do is we take a look at the cost of goods sold. So that is an accounting term to represent how much does it cost to produce a product. So in this scenario, we're saying that cost of goods sold is 50% of the sale price. All right, so then we will deduct that from the total sale price. And then most companies look for a profit margin between 30 and 40%. So we're saying that anywhere from 80–90% will be made up of the desired profit margin for the company, as well as the cost of goods sold. So that means that the company's ability to pay commission is between 10 and 20%. So then we'll also take a look at similar industries and commission salaries for that type of industry and that type of product and service, and we'll try to see more or less what they're paying. But again, it really goes back to your own organization and what their profit margins are and what they desire for their profit margins. It's really established on that basis. But we do know that in order to attract top talent into a straight commission-based role, we do have to look at paying 20% more than base pay salaries. So that's basically a high level how we set commissions. The advantage of sales commissions is that basically they're pretty easy to track and to measure to be able to determine an employee's rate of pay based on this type of individual performance pay. And it will really reduce the need for control mechanisms and management oversight. And it also is wonderful for it does incorporate feedback to the employee as to whether they're actually good at their job, because the sales will tell them whether they're skilled or not. So reduces employee risk as well, because it will match the highs and lows of the business, and it has the potential to increase sales because the employee's income is tied to the number of sales they make, so they'll be incentivized to sell more. The cons are that it's very difficult when somebody is first developing their sales skills. And it can be very variable with the pay, and so that's hard to attract and retain employees because their income will go up and down based on sales. So that's always a concern, and why oftentimes companies may have high attrition rates in these types of roles. So when we consider commission and individual piece rates, those types of individual performance pay are not going to be effective, and they won't work at all in a lot of types of jobs, especially knowledge-based jobs, where tasks are varied and where the work is very difficult to quantify and observe, or where the job is highly interdependent with other jobs within an employee group. But that doesn't mean that we can't use individual performance pay within these different types of jobs. We can. We'll just have to use a different type. So when I was working, when I was on the board of directors for an organization within the Niagara region, we did adopt an individual pay for performance component to the pay mix for the executive director. And what we did is we set up a performance appraisal metric. And in that, we identified 4 key strategic initiatives. That was patient safety, patient client satisfaction, employee satisfaction, and making sure that we were managing the facilities within the budget. So we made these 4 criteria key metrics that the executive director should be focusing their energy on. Not that the executive director has many other components to their job. These are just 4 priorities for the organization. So because we consider them to be priority actions for the facility and the organization at large, we decided that we were going to give an individual pay if the executive director met certain targets on these 4 criteria. So that case study example for the executive director is what we call a merit-based system of individual pay performance. And that is where we're looking to use performance appraisal rating systems to establish whether somebody qualifies for an individual performance pay bonus or not. So there's 3 different types of merit-based pay. One called a merit raise, another merit bonus, and the 3rd type is a promotion. So with the systems, we can use these systems to look at overall performance, or we can look at an individual aspect of performance. As you saw in the executive director example, we looked at an individual aspect of performance, not overall performance. And then you set up an appraisal rating tied to either that overall performance or the individual aspect. What's really important here is that we set up a system that is objective and fair. In other words, that the appraisal system itself has been designed appropriately so that all the objectives are clearly defined both for the employee as well as the manager that has to rate the performance of the employee, and that the managers are actually properly trained on the rating system so that this will reduce any possibility of bias in the rating system, so that it's conducted objectively and so that there's fairness and equity in the system, and that will lead so that we don't have any procedural justice issues. Because when these systems are poorly designed and not made clear to the employee and not made clear to the manager, what can happen is a discontentment with the system, and in terms of its ability to incentivize and motivate an employee, it will diminish, it will decline. Because if the employee doesn't believe that they can meet the targets or the goals, or they don't understand what the targets and goals are, it will be difficult for them to alter their behaviors to try to meet those objectives. So merit-based raise is when an employee has met the expectations of the performance appraisal system or metric. So whether it's overall performance or an individual aspect of performance, if an employee has met that expectation, depending on what the criteria was that the organization set. So it could be that you either have to meet the expectation or exceed it. If they've met or exceeded it as designed by the organization, then their overall base pay will rise. So their level of pay will increase, and that level of pay will continue to be at a higher level as they continue in the job. So it is based on historical measures, and if they've earned it, so say I in 2020 met the performance goal and I got a merit raise, then my pay would increase in 2021, and that base pay will continue at that higher level until I no longer work for that organization. The value of merit raises is that it allows us to incorporate individual performance pay in a lot of different types of jobs that where commission and individual piece rate is maybe not appropriate. And we can design it in a way that targets certain behaviors. And it also provides feedback to employees for them to understand what behaviors are really important to our organization. So if we believe that quality customer service is important to our organization, we may decide that the merit raise is associated with customer feedback. So if we have consistently found that the employee's customer feedback is high and positive, then that may qualify them for a merit raise. It also is good because it's one of the ways that we move an employee through their pay range. So we may begin by bringing. There are a number of disadvantages or issues with the merit raise system. First of all, if the appraisal instrument and administration is not objectively designed, then this can create low confidence in the system and disincentivize your employees. It could also become problematic if the pay raise for a high performer is the same as an average performer. It also is based on the idea that a job has a pay range, and that if an employee is sitting at the top of their pay range, they wouldn't qualify for a merit raise. It also is based on the judgment of management and supervisors, and if there is any biases, then this will lower the confidence in the system. And it also can create a situation of conflict and reduce cooperation between employees, especially when an organization decides that they can only provide merit raises for some employees and not for others. So this would create a competitive situation. Merit bonus is a cash payment that is either paid out annually or quarterly, and it's in recognition for good performance. So it doesn't raise the level of base pay. It's a one-time cash payment. So this is based on historical performance. So they'd look back at the past year or the past quarter to see if the individual has met their performance goals. And if they have, they will be given the merit bonus. So it does address the issue of topping out on your pay range. So if somebody's sitting at the top of their pay range, you can still give them a merit bonus. You wouldn't be able to give them a merit raise, but you can give them a merit bonus. It also creates some level of flexibility and control for the organization, in that we can take a look at whether we've earned revenues in the year, and if we have, we may decide that we will pay out bonuses in that given year. The advantages of this is it creates some flexibility to the merit system, in that the organizations have control over it because it's not a permanent bonus. It's based on meeting performance metrics as well as revenue. And so it's tied to the financial conditions of the firm. And as I said, it will address problems with an employee that's sitting at the top of their pay range. Again, it's a great way to incentivize and recognize strong performers. But again, going back to performance measures, if they're not clearly identified, if the employee doesn't understand them or if the targets are set too high, it will not produce the behaviors that we're hoping for. Another type of merit-based pay is actually a promotion. So you wouldn't think of that as performance pay, but it actually is. One way that we can recognize individual performers is by promoting them to higher level of job within our organization. The advantage of a promotion is two things. Number one, they can increase in their rewards. So they get a higher level pay because the job has a greater value to the organization, but it also carries with it intrinsic rewards. So when you promote somebody to a higher level position within the organization, they have a broader level of responsibilities. So this makes it more interesting for them. And so with promotions, they're getting both intrinsic and extrinsic rewards. There are several conditions that are required for establishing a merit-based pay system. One is that there needs to be a level of variability to performance. If a job is very routine, there's no way to motivate somebody to do more. They can only do what's within their job description. The performance also has to be within the control of the individual. And you must be able to clearly identify an individual's contribution to the job. There needs to be an accurate and objective appraisal system. And the funds need to be available to be able to do the payouts for the merit bonuses and the merit raises. So just because we set up a system doesn't mean that the organization can necessarily afford to support it. So there needs to be some consideration of operational budget, and we need to consider the position of the company financially. And then we should be thinking about, are there other ways that we can meet those objectives without the use of extrinsic rewards, so external payments? Can we use other kinds of rewards? Can we use intrinsic rewards to get an employee to be incentivized to meet those goals? And then we need to anticipate any possible undesirable behaviors. And does the merit pay system actually fit the company culture? If we think back to the case studies that we've read in the past, especially the one for the health food store, where they created an individual merit-based pay system for a department that was really focused on teamwork. So in that case, that pay system did not fit the company culture. The final type of individual performance pay is called the special purpose target incentive. So these are temporary bonuses that we can add on to the pay mix that foster behaviors of special importance. So we're trying to target certain behaviors within an individual job or a group of jobs or within an organization. So here's a couple of examples of special purpose target incentives. So one organization was looking to promote innovation within their organization. So they encouraged employees to submit their ideas in exchange for a percentage of cost savings. So if the organization used the idea and they experienced some savings within their organization, a percentage of that savings would be given to the employee who provided the innovative suggestion, and they would receive it in a lump sum bonus. So another type of special purpose target incentive was introduced by Lazy Boys. So they were finding that they were having attendance issues within their organization. And so to improve attendance, they started to provide bonuses and prizes for attendance. The second type of performance pay is called group performance pay. So the purpose of group performance pay is to do exactly what you think it's to do. It is to incentivize teamwork and cooperation amongst your employee group. There are two types that we're going to be taking a look at: gain sharing and goal sharing. The first one here on the screen is gain sharing. So you'll notice beside that it says 5% of firms. So there has been a study done to take a look at how many organizations in Canada actually use a gain sharing group performance, and that's only 5% of Canadian firms actually use it. In fact, group performance pay they're not commonly seen. Even though there's many organizations where teamwork is incredibly important, you very frequently see this being used in organizations. So the idea of the gain sharing bonus is for your team to focus on productivity or some kind of cost savings, and that the productivity gains and cost savings is divided amongst the group. So Whole Foods is an example of an establishment that did incorporate gain sharing goal performance pay into their pay mix. And they had employees look for cost savings within their stores, and a certain percentage of that was shared amongst the team. When we're designing a gain sharing program, there's a number of steps that we need to go through. First, we have to decide what particular group or work unit will we be introducing this gain sharing plan to. Then we have to establish what's going to be the bonus formula. So employees won't earn the entire cost savings. A certain percentage will go to the organization, a certain percentage to the employee group, and then we have to figure out amongst that employee group who's the greatest contributor to that gain share, and what percentage will we give to each employee. But we also we can't know what our gain share is unless we have some kind of baseline. So we need to measure what the costs were prior to implementing the program so that we can see whether there's an improvement or not. So we have to establish the baseline, and then we have to decide on what the share is amongst the company and the employees. And then we have to decide on the split amongst the employee. And we also have to figure out what is the frequency of payment. So is this going to be done on a bi-weekly basis, on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, or an annually basis? Now remember, the greater the frequency, the more administration that the program will require. It's advisable to take a look at administering this over an annual basis. So every year you take a look at, did they meet the gain sharing goals or not? We also have to figure out how are we going to communicate this to our employees so they understand how the program works. So that is a critical component to the success of the program. The more that we can incorporate employees within the design of the program and in the communication, the more that they'll buy into the program and understand it, and the more successful it is likely to be. Another type of group performance pay is called goal sharing. This is a little bit more popular in Canadian firms than gain sharing. It's used by 10 to 12% of firms within Canada. You frequently see them in retail environments. So the group performance pay system is that you set a bonus that is tied to some specific goal. So that goal can be quantitative or it could be qualitative. So unlike gain sharing is completely quantitative. In other words, do they achieve some savings in costs, and then you have a dollar value, and so that's easy to calculate. Whereas here in goal sharing, it could be a sales target, but it could be also some other kind of metric. It could be tied to health and safety in the workplace. So if you reduce the number of health and safety incidents, that might be the goal for your organization. So if you are working in the construction industry, safety is important criteria of that industry because there's a lot of risk in those types of jobs in that kind of industry. So that might be a goal that you've set for your employees. So obviously that's more of a qualitative measure. One of the advantages of goal sharing is that it's kind of an all or nothing scenario. Unless employees actually meet the goal, they don't achieve the bonus. Whereas in gain sharing, whatever savings they achieve is what they earn in their performance pay. Goal sharing can be it can be set up in a number of different ways. There's 3 types. One is single goal, one is multiple goal, and the third is financially funded. A single goal is you may set up your goal sharing based on one metric. So the example in the previous slide was health and safety incidents. So that would be your single goal. In a multiple goal, that is where organizations will say, okay, we're going to look at a variety of different metrics. So we might say health and safety incidents, but also customer service is also an important criteria. So we might have multiple goals. Financially funded is that we may have goals that we've set, but we also may have established within the criteria of achieving a goal bonus is that the company must also have earned revenue in that year to be able to pay out those bonuses. And so unless that is achieved, the group will not earn their bonus. When designing a goal sharing plan, we first look at what group are we designing it for. We're determining the types of goals that are sought. What is the level of performance that is required to achieve the goal? What is the goal? What's the level of the goal? What time frame is this goal? Is the goal to be achieved in? What will be the bonus amount that is tied to the goal? And how will that bonus be split amongst the employee team? Now remember, going back to our motivational theories in the course, valence is very important. Valence is the value that employees attribute to a particular goal and to a particular payout or reward. So goal sharing will not work if the level of the bonus is not high enough to incentivize the employee group. The final level of performance pay is called organizational pay for performance. So there are 2 types of organizational performance pay. One is profit sharing, and the other one is stock options. So the first one, profit sharing, and that's basically if the organization earns a profit, they will distribute a percentage reward to all of the employees within the organization. Profit share is traditionally most associated with executive pay and their pay mix. And it looks at historical performance. So it'll look at the past annual performance, so the last quarter. And the reason, and it's tightly tied to the accounting cycle. So we need to know, because it's directly related to profits, we need to have done our accounting statements before we can determine whether we can do the payout for employees within the organization. So so counting is done on a quarterly and an annual basis. So we'll look at our annual statements and look at our income statement to see if the company earned a profit. And if they did, based on some established formula, we will share some of that profit with the employees. Often that profit share is entrenched in the employee's individual contract. So they may have contract language that says they have a base salary of so much, maybe 60,000, and then they have a profit share bonus of 5%. So that's a fixed profit share. So that means that if the organization earns profits within the year, then the employee will get 5% of their 60,000. So that's the amount of profit share that they would earn. So profit shares can be both fixed and flexible. Flexible means that the amount of profit share will change from year to year based on organizational performance and the decisions of executives. Or if it's a fixed amount, it means that we've established it in their employee contract and they'll get a specific amount each year. There's a few different types of profit sharing plans. One's called current distribution, the other is deferred profit sharing plans, and the fourth one is a combination profit share plan. So current distribution means that the employee will earn the profit share in terms of cash or shares after the accounting period. So either at the end of the quarter or at the end of the annual and at the end of the year. Deferred means that that profit share bonus won't be paid out at the end of the quarter, at the end of the year. It will actually be held in trust for the employee and paid out in a future date. Usually, deferred profit share plans are used as a type of pension plan for employees. So that's one way that we can establish some pension income for employees, is to use profit sharing. And it's another way that we can incentivize membership behavior. So in other words, employee has to stick around with the firm to be able to realize and earn that profit share because it's deferred. So it could be used deferred to retirement, or it could be deferred to some other specified time period. The combination profit share simply means that they're using a combination of both current distribution and deferred profit share. When designing profit sharing plans, there first needs to be a formula for determining the bonus. So as I said, it can either be fixed or discretionary. So fixed means that it's a pre-established set amount, or discretionary means that it can change from year to year. We have to determine what the employee eligibility is. So it might be tied to, usually it's tied to the job that they hold and their employee contract. We have to determine the basis of profit sharing allocation to the employees and how frequently will they be paid out. Again, it's usually quarterly or annually. And then it's really important to be communicating to your employees that they're actually earning a profit share. If we want to incentivize and motivate employees using an organizational performance pay, then they have to understand that they're getting it and how this whole system works. So one of the most popular way for communicating profit share is through a company town hall. So both at Canadian Tire, we did a profit sharing program, and every quarter we would invite all the employees to a town hall meeting where they would be told about the results, the financial position of the company, and we would communicate in those meetings whether the employees earned a profit share bonus or not for the given year. Profit share programs have been very popular in the airline industry, so both Delta and WestJet use profit sharing programs. So I haven't mentioned this in the lecture so far, but I just want to see what you think. So this is a bit of a knowledge check question. So in which type of managerial strategy do you think it's most likely that they will use organizational profit sharing performance pay plan? Do you think it's most effective for high involvement management, classical, defender, or human relations? So if you recall, there is no such thing as a defender managerial strategy. There's really only these three: high involvement, classical, and human relations. But which one do you think is most appropriate for the use of profit sharing programs? So I'll give you a minute to think about that before I give you the answer. If you chose high involvement, you would be correct. So if you remember, high involvement is typically organizations that are structurally very flat and require the knowledge and the input of their employees to be successful. So their business strategy is very much based on the know-how of their employees. So they need lots of involvement. They need high involvement of staff for them to function well and to be successful. So doesn't it make sense that that type of firm should share the rewards of the organization to their employees? Absolutely. So profit share is one way to do that, to help incentivize what we call the entrepreneur mindset. In other words, we want our employees within the firm to feel very connected to the organization, and using organizational performance pay like profit share is one way to do that. So here's another knowledge check question for you. So I actually did mention this in a prior slide. So the deferred profit sharing plan is most often used in quasi pension plans. Would you say that that's a true or false statement? So I'll give you a minute to think about it. Yes, that is a true statement. So many organizations will use deferred profit sharing plans as a quasi pension plan. So the final example of an organizational performance pay is the use of employee stock ownership. So similar to profit sharing, stock options or stock ownership plans are most often used in executive compensation systems. So companies establish benefit plans which give employees ownership of stocks as part of their benefits. So there's a few different ways that we can set this up. We can give the stocks outright to employees, or they can give the option to purchase at a later date at a guaranteed price. The value of stock options is that it creates a sense of ownership amongst your employees. So they feel much more invested in the success of the organization when they are owners of stock within the company. For those of you who have invested or have done some investing in the past, you'll understand that when you own stocks in a company, you are given financial disclosures. So you are given the financial statements of the company. You're also provided with communication about the current financial situation, as well as what are the strategic goals of the organization in the future. Where do they think the company is going to be headed? So that's communicated to stock owners, as well as stock owners are given the opportunity to vote on key decisions or certain general decisions within the organization. So imagine if you are an employee of a firm and you are given the respect of understanding or getting insight of what position the company's in, and then being communicated and also getting voting rights. So that creates what we find a higher level of effective commitment. So people that work in firms where there's organizational profit pays like stock options, they feel much more connected to the company, which in turn creates what we call psychological ownership, in that you feel not only that you're an employee there, but you also feel like you own the company in a sense, because you directly profit by the success of the company. Companies that have incorporated stock ownership plans have realized higher profits than companies that don't have them. There are three types of stock ownership plans: the employee stock bonus plan, the employee share purchase plan, and the employee stock option plan. So the employee stock bonus plan is simply where an employee is given shares within the company at no cost. So we frequently use this in executive pay. Microsoft, if you recall, I told you the story in the early week of the early term that Microsoft employees, when they first were hired, when the company was first starting out, they got a stock bonus plan. In other words, they were given shares in the company at no cost. Other programs include employee share purchase plan, and this is where employees are provided with the option to buy shares at a below market price. So they aren't given the shares. What they are is they're given the opportunity to buy shares in the company at a below market price, but it's in the current year. So if I'm an employee with the employee share purchase plan, and I'll be allotted so many share options at a set price. So I will take a look at whether it's worth it to me. So if the set price is at $5, but they're trading at $10, so I'll say, okay, it's worth it for me to buy and sell. So I can buy it at $5 and I can sell it right away and realize a profit of $5 because it's selling at 10. The other plan is called the employee stock option plan. It works very similar to the share purchase plan in that you are given the option to buy shares at a set price that's below market, but you have some time to purchase them. In other words, you don't have to purchase them right away. You can wait. So maybe your set price is still at $5, but right now their current value is at $10 and you want to wait a bit. So maybe you wait 2 years and you buy them at $5 at that set price, but they're now worth $15. So you're going to realize a greater profit. So it's basically, it allows you more time to exercise that option to purchase and sell. So our final slide here in the lecture is talking about the compensation strategy template that you're going to use for your assignment. So assignment number 1, where you're looking at Zenith Medical. In that assignment, it says that you have to do 4 pay mixes, right? 4 pay mixes for 4 different jobs. Okay, so you're going to use this template that you see on the screen. So you may decide, okay, I'm going to do the pay mix for compensation specialist. So what I would do here is on the job family, I would say the name of the job. So I'm going to type in here the name of the job, which is compensation specialist. Then I will determine what is my compensation strategy. Am I going to meet the market or match the market, lead the market, or lag the market. I may decide that I'm just going to match the market. So I'll put an X or a check mark there. The next thing that I have to do is I have to decide what are going to be the components of the pay mix. So you'll notice that here I have the three categories of pay: base pay, performance pay, and indirect pay. So base pay, I have to decide, am I going to incorporate it in the compensation specialist? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to do, perhaps I'm going to do 60% of their pay is going to be base pay. And then 30% is going to be performance pay. And the remaining 10% is going to be indirect pay. So that's going to be my overall pay mix for this job. 60% is going to be base pay, 30% is going to be performance pay, and 10% is going to be indirect pay, my benefits. So I'll just put my percentages in there. So the next decision is base pay. How am I going to establish base pay? Am I going to use job evaluation, market pricing, or pay for knowledge? Well, in this assignment, every job needs to be either job evaluation or pay for knowledge, not market pricing. So I'm going to say in this job, I'm going to use job evaluation. So 100% of that 60% is going to be established using base pay. You cannot use a combination. You either use job evaluation, market pricing, or pay for knowledge. You cannot use a combination, as I said. That's not possible. So, as I said, you are not using market pricing in this assignment. You're either going to use job evaluation or pay for knowledge. So it's important for you to read up on what pay for knowledge is or job evaluation. Determine which one you want to use. And then my next decision is I've decided that 30% of their pay mix is going to come from performance pay. I would like this one to be a combination of individual and organizational pay. So 50% is going to come from individual. Actually, I'm going to end. I think I'll make this 90% will come from individual, and the other 10% will come from organization. So now I have to decide which type of individual pay will I use. I'm going to use merit pay, and I'm going to use, it says bonuses, but it could be raise. So let's say we're going to use raise here, merit raise. So 100% of that is going to be merit raise. So of that 90%, 100% is going to be merit raise. Here, for organizational, that 10%, I'm going to use profit sharing. So 100% of that 10% is going to be from performance of profit sharing. Now I have my benefits. So 10% of the pay mix is benefits. So obviously a portion of it has to be mandatory benefits. So maybe that's going to be 20%. And that will be EI. That will be CPP. That will be WSIB. And that'll be OHIP. That will make up my 20%. So my other 80%, I have to figure out what benefits I want to provide for this role. So I'm going to do some health. So that will be another 20%. That's probably my bigger one. So now we have 40%. So the other 60% might be EAP. Maybe 10% here. Maybe I'm going to provide them with training or professional development, or an educational bursary. So maybe that's going to be another 10% here. Other things could be I'm going to give them a cell phone and maybe cell phone, or maybe some swag, some computer technology, some tech. So we have 20, we've got 40, 50, 60. Actually, maybe I'm going to increase that health benefits to 40. So we've got 60, 70, 80, and maybe 20%. So I've just like very arbitrarily filled this in. But I just wanted you to see how you approach and fill out this compensation strategy template for assignment 1. So you need to do 4 of these for 4 different jobs in Zenith Medical. And then with each of these template, you also have to provide within your report a rationale as to why you designed the pay mix the way that you did, including what types of behaviors you're trying to incentivize and how you think your pay mix will actually address those or motivate those types of behaviors. And also you need to take into consideration, what is your managerial strategy? So what did you recommend to the company, and how does this pay mix support that strategy? So that's it, folks. That's the end of this recorded lecture.